Where do the Maple Leafs stand as we approach the All-Star break, and what are we looking for in the second half? Hey everyone, welcome to Inside the Leafs. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Toronto Sun Maple Leafs writers Lance Hornby and Terry Koshan. And guys, with the Maple Leafs off until after the All-Star break, it's time to take a look back at the first half. And as it stands right now, the Leafs are in a wild card spot, but probably not a position people thought they would be in at the beginning of this season. Terry, if you were to give this team a grade at the break, what would it be?
Well, Rob, I guess if there was a mark somewhere between a C plus and a B minus, I'd probably go there. The Leafs just haven't met expectations. I think if you said to the two of us when camp broke that we'd be sitting here at the All-Star break talking about the Leafs in a wild card spot and potentially in a second one if Detroit wins their game on Wednesday night, I don't think we would have believed you. But here they are. And yes, I know they have games in hand on both the Red Wings and Tampa, which should put them in good stead. But we always like to talk about games in hand, but these things don't necessarily add up to wins all the time. But we just expected more. The goaltending questions that were there seem to be solved now. They have got through some injuries. We all know what their best players have done with Austin Matthews and William Nylander, and on their way to their top seasons in the National Hockey League. But just as a team, they haven't put it together as much as we thought they would, and now they're going to be in a fight, I think, in the second half with the Wings and Lightning for third place to Atlantic. They're not catching Boston, and Florida doesn't look catchable either. But I would say that overall, through the first 47 games, they've fallen short of expectations.
I'd sort of agree with Terry's marks. Maybe the players get the B plus. The B minus, Terry, and Brad Treliving gets the C plus. I don't think many of his moves have overwhelmed people so far. You go back to gambling on Klingberg. I know it was an injury more than anything else, but he wasn't really overwhelming people when he was healthy. Right now, you have Domi and Bertuzzi kind of running hot and cold, maybe averaging 0.5 points per game. That's got to improve a little bit, and you have the goaltending issue. To Terry's point, certainly the Stars have done well. But a lot of this has been shadowed by the goaltenders, and that has been the injury to Joseph Wall, the inconsistency with Ilya Samsonov, and that's led to where they are now. Actually, just 3 regulation wins behind last year's pace, believe it or not, despite the fact they sit so low in the standings. So I think people thought they would be better, but this may finally be the year where other teams have caught up to them. I mean, you've sort of been waiting for this the last 2 or 3 years. You knew the teams below them wouldn't sit still forever, and I think the Leafs are seeing that come true this season, half season.
Just one more point I make. The point makes about the new guys too. Brad Treliving can't hang his hat on the fact that his best free agent signings have been depth guys like Simone Benoit and Nolan Gregor. Just can't. And to Lance's point, Tyler Bertuzzi has been a real disappointment, and Max Domi has been a little better, but still, I think he's at a 42-point clip, which doesn't come anywhere close to his career high. So again, a lot of these things that were done last offseason just haven't paid off at all.
So looking ahead to the second half, there are some interesting storylines outside of their playoff push, whether it be Austin Matthews' chase for 70 goals, the goaltending situation, or what may come at the trade deadline. Lancer, what are some of the things that you'll be keeping your eye on the rest of the way?
Well, certainly the goaltending. The fact that Ilya Samsonov bounced back, like a lot of people, me anyway, thought he eventually would, is going to cloud the situation when Joseph Wall gets back and presumably picks up where he left off. They have had issues there, as we've talked about. Wall, I think, was doing well before that. There's going to finally be that goaltending battle there, and of course, now you've seen they have Martin Jones there for emergencies. So what happens with those 3 guys will be interesting, and get closer to the trade deadline on March 8th. Certainly they need help on defense, especially if they're going to do a lot of load management with Mark Giordano. And, you've seen Connor Timmins come up, but really nothing on the farm behind them. So I think you're going to see Brad Treliving take a long look at what's available at the deadline and move on from there. It's going to be a great playoff race for a change. At least been home and cooled out a couple of years in a row now. I think it's given Joel, and they're through 2 or 3 of their toughest road trips now. I think it's going to be close. You're not going to see the Leafs. I think it's coming down to the last week of the season as to what their playoff seeding is going to be.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's exactly why it doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense for Brad Treliving to do much for the trade deadline, as I wrote today. You look back a year ago, guys, Kyle Dubas between the All Star break and the deadline added 7 players, and it got to the Leafs. What did get them a first round victory and 1 win in the second round? So, for a lot of teams and a lot of years, that's disappointment. But for this Leaf group that hadn't been past the first round since '04, that meant something. Well, this year you've got the playoff race fight. Say Trilliving goes and gets a Chris Tanev, in that case, you're hoping that type of player is the one that puts you over the top. But we know that they're not catching Boston. They're likely not going to catch Florida. So chances are good they're going to start really good. They're going to start the playoffs on the road, and therefore, I suppose at a disadvantage. But I just don't see any player that Brad Treliving could acquire that will make them into a contender. They might have to work it out themselves. Like Lance said, that we've seen some defense depth. Can you get some more? Perhaps, maybe a bit more in forward. Now I'm really curious to see. And we talk about the second half, if you will, how they get by without Calle Jornkrok. I think his absence can't be underestimated and what he brings to that depth. But for me, the big storylines in part two are Austin Matthews chased for 70. I think he's 30 away. The Leafs have 35 games left, presuming he plays in all of them. He'd have to score at a 69 goal pace to hit 70, and he's going into the break right on a 70 goal pace. So keep doing what he's doing. He should get there. So I think that's obviously historical. As far as the goaltending goes, I think finally, like Lance was getting at, it's a good problem to have. If Samsonov can keep this going, Wall comes back and plays like he did before he got hurt in December in Ottawa. Real good problem. You want that competition for that spot. You want Sheldon Keefe to go into each night and say, okay, make this a difficult decision for me as to who I'm going to start. Whereas before, when Samsonov was playing and Wall was playing, Samsonov struggling, so you're kind of peeking between your fingers each time he goes in. You're pretty sure you're going to get it. It's not good. Now we're seeing him round that corner, so that's a good problem, if you will, for the Leafs to have. But yeah, it's kind of new territory for them. Last year they were home and cooled out in the Atlantic Division, and we knew where they were going to finish. This year we don't, and I think it's going to make for a lot more intrigue in the last couple of months here of the regular season.
Yeah, as you guys have said, it's going to be a very interesting stretch run here in the final 35 games. As always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below or send us an email at torontomapleleafs@postmedia.com. For Lance Hornby and Terry Koshan, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.